Okay.
So we up, brother. We live. And what's up,
Okay.
everybody? This is Brother Dave Grady here once again, thanking God for this opportunity to do another Uncensored Live episode. This is number 6. And I'm very, very thankful for this episode because I got a very good friend with me today, special guest, Mr. Corey Stoner. So, before I introduce Corey and we get into the topics of today's show, which I do believe is going to be very beneficial, very informative, very inspirational, all the things that make up Uncensored Live. So I'm very excited about that. But before we move forward with it, I just want to wish all of the watchers well, everybody who tunes into the show, everybody who is a subscriber, God bless. And I want to remind everyone else who does tune in, everybody who is enjoying the content, or if you are new to the content and you're enjoying it, please subscribe. Please like the videos. Please share. I also do Bible studies, also do music. And, if the content is good, we just need a response, a comment, anything like that to help boost the visibility and the algorithm so that maybe others can see it as well. So I do appreciate that. And without further ado, today, as I told you, we're going to be with my brother here, Mr. Corey Stoner. Thank you, bro, for coming on the show. I'm glad to see you doing well here, man. It's been a long time since I got a chance to see you physically, but
I
I'm
know.
glad you're doing good, bro. And I do appreciate you coming on the show. I want to tell you all a bit about Corey before I give him a chance to introduce himself because Corey is not only a good friend, Corey is one of my best friends. I have a few good friends, and I have two friends that I consider best friends. And one of them happens to be Corey. And me and Corey, we met in high school, and we were freshmen in high school, and we've been friends ever since. And as we grew older, in high school and throughout our early 20s, we got closer and closer. And just Corey, in my opinion, I know none of us are perfect or whatever, but one of the reasons why me and Corey clicked was because Corey was just always a peaceful, good-hearted person, and we were very mischievous when we was kids. I mean, we did a lot of stupid stuff, and I don't know how much we'll get into that, but we were normal, mischievous teenagers, like any other kids that grow up in our culture. But on that bigger level, we weren't looking for trouble. We were just trying to have fun. Me and Corey rap together. Corey is a great recording artist, always was a great rapper. And we would just sit up. He was one of the first ones of us to have a car. Corey had that red Escort,
Hey.
and we used to ride around in that bug about, 5, 6 deep, like it was a clown car, and playing rap music
Maybe more
loud,
than
and then
that.
we be sitting out front smoking blunts and freestyling, just being silly. But as we got older, we started talking about the Lord, and we started maturing together. And I just believed in my spirit and still believe that Corey is a good person to have in my life and be around. And God continues to confirm that, y'all. And that's why I wanted to hit something head on real quick that about me, I could never be a racist person. I could never be somebody who looks at people through the lens of race because of people like Corey. And I know that God allowed me to, as I told you all when I had Tamika on the show, we went to an all white high school. And even though, there was some racism and things like that we, and I'm sure Corey could speak for himself and know that racism exists, but Corey was not one of those racist people. And actually, Corey always, like, kind of, to me, acted a little, I guess, black, you would say, just culturally or whatever. And that's why, as a younger man, I gravitated to him and we kind of connected. But I still knew he was white. And at some point, when we got so close, we wasn't even paying attention to that. And I just look at him as another man and as a good man. And I thank God for allowing him to be in my life. There was a time when I was in my early 20s, and, I was trying to mature and become a grown man, and I needed a little help in my life. And Corey was actually there as a friend to help me. Corey helped me get a job, gave me a job opportunity in my early 20s that I kept for a nice amount of time. And made a nice amount of money over there at Play and Stay Pet Care in Troy. So that was a true blessing, and I'll never forget during that time. It was a time where I was sick as a dog. I don't get sick often, but I was very, very sick. I couldn't even get out the bed. And like I said, I was like maybe 22, 23 years old or something, fresh back from Iraq out of the army, was going through all type of family drama. So while I was sick, I had called my mom, but she had kind of been like pushing me away to the side, trying to make me grow up and be a man and be out there on my own or whatever. And she was busy, tied up. She didn't call me back. She didn't realize how sick I was. So I called Corey, and Corey was able to come through, and Corey was able to bring me some medicine, and I think I forgot you might have brought me some food or something, man. But all that you brought me some stuff to help me out, man, to check on me, and I never forgot that, bro. I truly appreciated it, and then as we just continued to stay connected, I just continue to see you growing and being the person that God is raising you up to be. And I'm thankful that you in my life. Thankful for having you on the show. And I want to tell you all as well before we have Corey begin to speak that Corey is and was an adopted child. And I didn't even know that, until we got a little bit older and we began to talk more about our personal lives and share that with me. And I want Corey to talk about that today. He's going to talk about his experiences growing up as an adopted child. He's going to inform us about some of the things that affect us in a negative way when we experience those types of things as children, as many people have. Corey's not the only person. And Corey has overcome most or many. I can't speak for him because I'm not the Lord, and I know he may have his own battles and things he struggles. But as his friend, I've seen Corey overcome a lot of struggles, a lot of difficulties, a lot of grief, a lot of pain, just like myself, and many of us have. And that's why I want to have Corey speak to us today because he can help us with his testimony and how he have overcome. And he's also going to inform us because Corey is pretty much a health and fitness guru, in my opinion. And I would love to talk with him about some of these things, especially now with me doing my training and really being serious about taking care of my body. I would just love to pick Corey's brain and have him share with you all as well some of what he knows about us taking care of our bodies because the Bible says it's the temple of the Holy Spirit. So that means we need to be taking care of it. So Corey, thank you for coming on the show. I apologize for all that talking I be doing, but
You're
now
good,
it's your
man.
time, my brother, and I appreciate you, man. And could you please just formally introduce yourself for all my subscribers, all my guests, and people who are going to watch the show?
Well, yeah, for sure. For first, I appreciate you even having me on your platform, man. I really appreciate it, and I really am proud of you and all that you're doing, man. You have a great platform, and it's set up to help other people, man, and that's what you're doing, and I really appreciate that. So my name is Corey Stoner. I was born in Detroit, Michigan, at Mount Sinai or Grace Sinai Hospital. Unfortunately, I was adopted, so as an infant, and I was placed in a foster care. I wasn't there too long. I ended up being adopted, and I was raised out in Royal Oak, Michigan, with my brother. My brother, he was actually adopted too, but he came from a different family. So the dynamic that I grew up in was a little different than other people, right? Because I never knew my blood. I never knew who I shared my features with. So every time when I would look in the mirror, it would be a question mark. And that question mark would hang in that mirror for a long period of time until like my mid 20s, until I finally answered the question to that question mark, which I'll get into
Mhm,
later. But that's a little
mhm.
background of me.
Wow. So I'm gonna ask you some questions that maybe were not on the paper, but just to get a better more details of because I have questions, just trying to put myself in your shoes. You know what I'm saying? And as I
Right.
sit here and I think like when we by the time I came into your life, I thought that your parents were your blood parents. Like I even
Right.
thought I would have found some features and be like, yeah, I think it was like no doubt in my mind that was your blood parents.
Right.
And I know I've seen some movies and things like that where it was this controversy of you have an adopted child and they're an infant. So do we even tell them that they're adopted and things like that? So how did your parents like deal with that aspect of things, or how does that work in real life as far as growing up and knowing you're adopted, knowing these not your parents and stuff? Like, how did that work out?
Okay, so when I want to say like maybe fourth grade. I don't remember the exact day, right? but I was told that I was adopted. Um,
Mhm.
how it felt, I can't even explain it. I mean, to imagine that you're growing up in a house and you're like, these are my family, this, that, and the third. You're not questioning anything, right? The question mark was always there, but you didn't know it was there
Mhm.
until you found out. So when I found out I was adopted, that's when the question mark became prominent in my life. And that's when it became that question that I always had. Um,
Mhm.
it made you feel different. So, like when you're in your elementary school, right? They're talking about family tree, like history, and I didn't even know a leaf. So
Mhm.
you can't really connect to an identity if you don't have a tree to even start from, a leaf, even, a branch.
Wow.
And
Wow.
so the question mark becomes even bigger at that point. But one thing for me though, like I can't speak for other people. One thing for me, I was fortunate because the street I grew up on, down the street, I'm not going to say their names because I don't know if they want to, but they were all adopted that came from that house. So not only my brother who came from a different family, but the family down the street, they were all adopted. Another
Okay.
friend of mine to stay a couple blocks over, he ended up moving out to Oak Park, whatever, but he was adopted. And
Wow.
having that connection of people who can relate to you and understand what you're going through, it helped a lot. It really
Right.
helped a
Right.
lot. I can't imagine for kids who are adopted growing up in communities where there's no one around that can relate to what they're going through. Because I think in a world that's so big, when you're going through something even bigger, it can make you feel like you're alone. But having
Mhm.
people around you who can connect and relate to you, it kind of makes you feel like you're part of a community, which is like really helps you get through a lot of things. And I think that's
Right.
what helped me a lot.
Right.
You
And
know.
I'm glad you brought that up, man, because as you were saying how, you didn't, you knew you didn't have a family tree and you didn't have that lineage to look back at, and those questions were there. I can relate, now as a black person, I can relate, and I'm sure a lot of black people can relate with that feeling. And the reality of it is you feeling it times 10, because if a person knows who their direct parents are, and then even their grandparents, like I did, grandparents, that's farther back than you could go. So, but I can relate to that. And I do believe it's a lot of people that can relate to that, just in different ways. Like even people who be struggling with their sexuality and different stuff, even though I don't agree with it, I know that those types of struggles may be going through their mind as they battle with these things. So, as you were growing up, you know what I'm saying? And as you began to like come into yourself, or like self-awareness of who you want to be as a person. And like even as I was saying, we got older and you started to express the desire to seek out your birth parents. Like what evolution took place of you, like as you grew up, like just coming into yourself and who you were, accepting yourself or beginning to learn yourself and deciding to actually do that.
Well, I always had, when I found out that I was adopted and seeing other people learning about their family tree, like the family I grew up in, they're like, we're Irish, this and the third. I would think in the back of my mind, like, you are, but I don't know what I am, you know?
Mhm.
And it wasn't until around high school, I want to say ninth or 10th grade, that my mother who raised me, my mother, like, let's get this clear. Like, I look at them as my family, right? Because they took me in, they raised me. So I look at them as my
Mhm.
family, right? So when I say
Mhm.
my family, that's who I'm referring to. If I say
Mhm.
biological or blood, then I'm referring to my family who gave me up.
Okay.
So she presented a letter to me that my birth mother wrote me when I was younger, and
Mhm.
she wrote it before she gave birth to me, and it was basically explaining why she gave me up. Just going in detail, like it was says something to the effect of, I'm young or whatever. I don't want you to grow up without a dad. So in my mind, she doesn't know who the dad is. It's just some random party or whatever. In addition to that, she was 15 when she had me. And I also remember being in high school. I was walking through the 300 wing, and I remember I just turned 15. I remember thinking at the time, like imagining what it would be like to have a kid right now. And I just
Mhm.
couldn't imagine it. So I kind of started at that point, started to understand why I was giving up, because for so long being given up, like a lot of people would say to me, and these are people who aren't even adopted, so they don't understand, but they would still say it. I would
Mhm.
say that I was adopted as an infant, right? So when I was given up for adoption, or when I was given up, I was placed in foster care, and then I was adopted when I was really young, right, a baby. And they would say like, well, you don't remember that, it shouldn't affect you like that. But the truth is, the mind may not remember it, but the nervous system remembers it. The nervous system
Mhm.
remembers it. So scientific, like the
Mhm.
scientific term for it is attachment rupture. Excuse me, attachment
Okay.
rupture, and
Okay.
it has a significant impact on the nervous system. It actually conditions you to think that love is conditional, and it actually. So when I was growing up, I would have abandonment issues. I'd always be afraid somebody's going to leave.
Mhm.
It would make me act and react different in relationships. It could
Yeah.
turn you into a people pleaser. It can make you have an incredible mounding effect of self doubt. It can have lasting impacts, right? So you always
Mhm.
afraid somebody's going to leave. Like, why would somebody want me? My own blood doesn't want me. Nobody cares about me. Like, my own blood doesn't want me. And you kind of go into that vicious cycle, and it is damaging. And I'm
Mhm.
living proof that even as an infant, it can still have a lasting impact on you, in a horrific impact on you, unless you get it sorted out. And we grew up in the era where mental health wasn't really addressed the way it is now. So it
Right.
wasn't it
Right.
wasn't until later in life when I started researching these things, and I started piecing together why I act this way, why I am this way, why I am who I am, why I have all this self doubt, why I always feel like a very low self worth, why I feel like
Mhm.
everyone wants to leave, and why I try to do everything to not make that happen. It
Right.
all stems back from that moment. You know.
Right. 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 And man, I just want to say as well that from a biblical perspective, that's why, the godly family structure that he ordained is so important. That's why I preach it the way I do. And people will say, "Oh, it's old school. We ain't in the 50s. It's a different culture." But
Well, I
as
could
you
say the
mentioned,
word never changes, right?
exactly, the word don't change.
Never
And
changes.
the results of us doing things our own way, or I don't know what your birth mother situation was, but I just know that there are so many situations where we leaving our children vulnerable, and then these types of things are the results. And that's why I always point people to the scriptures and point people to doing it God's way within the protection of marriage and all those things when you're at a maturity level when you can handle that responsibility. And I want to also commend your parents that raised you, because again, the way that they raised you, I did not see any difference. Like, to me, I had my mama was my real mom, and then I had my stepdad, but he raised me like a real dad. And he had, kids with my mom as well in a mixed family where I saw him. There was no difference in how we were being treated. So when
Yeah.
I was around you, I knew what that felt like. I knew what that looked like, and I saw that with your parents. And I just want to give a shout out to them and just praise the Lord for them, because, I know nobody's life is perfect, but I just believe they did such a great job. They made a difference in your life. And I want to encourage people to look into adoption. If maybe can't have children physically or whatever, you want to have children, adoption is always an option. It's a great ministry tool. As Corey was saying, there will be challenges because of what comes along with a person not having their natural parents and things like that, and their natural identity. But as we could see, even in Corey's life, making those types of sacrifices and doing those types of good things for others, it does make a difference. So I just thank the Lord for your parents, bro.
Thank you for that, man. Absolutely. I
Hmm.
actually, I'm sure you know, but I met my birth mother. Um,
Hmm.
so one of the movies that like really inspired me a lot when I was growing up, like, not only inspired me but really had a lasting impact, was the movie Antoine Fisher with Denzel Washington.
Okay. Right,
You
right,
seen you
right.
seen that movie? Yeah, when he found his
Oh,
birth family.
right,
It
right,
kind of
right,
it painted this picture that I always wanted, right? So that
right.
kind of like started that ember, or set that ember inside of me that started
And that
burning.
was,
Like,
you said, just about 15 when they how old were you when you
when I
started?
saw that
Because I
movie,
remember when you talked to me about it, it was like, I remember, I think we was in our early 20s. I didn't
yeah.
even know in high school you was adopted.
Well, if early 20s, right? So it wasn't long after that when I found them, and I didn't find it by myself. I'm not gonna say people's names on here because I don't know if people want to be attached to certain things.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
one of my friends, who you and I both know, actually helped me find them.
okay,
So when I started my search, yeah, he was actually able to locate them.
okay,
Now, when I went to find my birth family, it was incredibly nerve wracking, right? Like, are they going to accept me? Are they actually, going to be happy to see me? All these things are going through your mind, right? And then that question mark becomes louder and louder, bigger and bigger. And then so he found the phone number, right? So I call, and I believe it was probably my biological grandmother, because
Okay.
when she answered the phone, I basically said, my name's Corey. I was given up for adoption. I was giving out the dates, and she it went really quiet. I'll never forget. It went really quiet on the phone, and then she was like, "Let me call you back." And I had this like weird like nervousness, like I don't. It's hard. I don't even know if I could explain it. But it was like a
Right.
feeling of like almost completeness,
Mm-hmm.
right? So
Mm-hmm.
let me backtrack for a second. So before I went on this search, right, out of respect for my family who raised me, I asked them for their permission or for their
Okay.
blessing to be able to go out and look for them. I didn't have to do
Mm-hmm.
that, right? I was in my early 20s. I could have did that on my own without asking, right? So I asked them for their blessing.
Mm-hmm.
So my mom said, if I was adopted, I want to know where I came from too.
Right.
So that's when I started my search, and then that's leading up to that phone call where she said, "I'll call you back." So she calls me back
Okay.
not long after,
Right.
saying, no, excuse me, my birth mother called me. So when that lady was my grandmother, my biological grandmother. So then my birth mother called me back, and
Mm-hmm.
like hearing her voice for the first time, like I get goosebumps now just thinking about it. But it's I guess a lot of people take it for granted, right? Because they grew up with their blood, so they don't. It's hard to really understand it, right? That's why the people who weren't adopted were always saying, like, "Well, you're too young to like really remember it. So how could it actually affect you like that?"
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Not really knowing what they're talking about. So
Right.
yeah, so the feeling I had when I heard her voice for the first time was like overwhelming feeling of completeness, right? It's that
Mm-hmm.
longing
Mm-hmm.
last of connection, that every baby is entitled to, that should have, right? They should be able to, it's nature, right? They're supposed to be able to connect. That's important. It's highly important. And it's even more proven now, in the science or whatever.
Right.
Yeah. So we talked and then caught up, or what I can't catch up over that many years, but that quickly. So we
Mm-hmm.
decided we were going to meet, and then we met for the first time. I went by myself, and it was just her and I. We met at this Olive Garden. And then, so I had in my mind, I would never know who my birth father is. Like, I'll never know. I just accepted it as written in the letter, right? That I talked about earlier.
Right. Right.
So when we get to the Olive Garden, we're talking or whatever. And, I asked about my birth father, just wanted to check that box. And then she said, yeah, I don't know who he was or whatever. And
Mm-hmm.
so we have I learned that I have a half sister,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then so it was a good dinner or whatever. We got to catch up and everything, and talk, and just talk about how I grew up, talk about why she gave me up for adoption. She's basically saying she was too young, everything matching detail to the letter, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then so we agree that we're going to meet again, and then I'm going to be able to meet my half sister. So fast forward, I go to meet my half sister. I go to my birth mother's place of her apartment or whatever, and I go
Mm-hmm.
in, and then there's this lady, and there's this other guy in there, and my half sister and my birth mother. And
Mm-hmm.
these two people, the lady is my half grandmother, or excuse me, my biological grandmother, my biological grandfather, right? And we're talking, and then the grandmother says, "Have you ever met your or have you? I don't know, what did she say? I'm sorry, I'm like, it's a little fuzzy. Yeah, she told my half sister to go get the photo album out of the closet.
Mm-hmm.
So we're sitting at this like in the kitchen at the dinner table, whatever. And my half
Mm-hmm.
sister comes back in with the photo album, and then my grandmother sitting next to me starts going through the pictures, and then she stops on this one particular photo of this guy, and she just pauses for a second, and then she says, "Do you know who this is?" Of course I don't. I've never met you guys before. It's like the second time I ever met you guys. First time I ever
Right.
met them.
Right.
You
Family
know,
do
like
that.
kind of question.
Right.
But so like literally this is how it went. And then so she's like, "This is your birth father." And I kind of like sat back in my seat. Like I didn't know how, I'm like, I'm not really young, but I'm like mid 20s, early 20s. And I'm
Mhm.
like taken aback by it. And my birth mother's sitting across from me at the kitchen table, and she's got her head down, because literally at the dinner, like she told me that she doesn't know who he is or whatever. And now I'm looking
Right,
at a photo of him that was in her closet,
right,
and she
right.
was like, "This is your dad." I'm not understanding, like really overwhelmed. Not understand. And then mind you, like I'm by myself, so I don't know these people.
Mhm.
It's the weirdest feeling, like when you around people who
Oh, yeah.
but you don't know. It's a
Mhm.
weird feeling. But
Mhm.
anyway, so it turns out that she did actually know my birth father, and then so
Mhm.
the whole beginning of this reconnection started with a lie, that,
Mhm.
and then it got to the point where everything just became very overwhelming, where I just needed a break from it,
Mhm.
and I just needed to be able to be to myself and process, what was happening.
Mhm.
So
Right, right.
yeah, and then to this day, I don't really have much of a connection with them anymore. But one thing I will say is that before I went to go meet my birth mother at that dinner, I and it was weird. It was kind of like a good feeling and a sad feeling. Like that question mark is going to be gone after I go here, and I'm just
Mhm.
interested to see what that question mark, what that answer is going to be. And it was the weirdest feeling being around people who look like you, people who kind of think like you. How you could never be around somebody, but your personalities are so similar. It's
Mhm.
I don't know. It's a weird feeling, but it did close or answer a lot of questions. And it did help for me to close that chapter and move on. So it was beneficial.
Right.
Even
So it was
though
something,
even though there was lies being told.
well, it was something you found out the truth though. You found out
Hmm.
what was true, you found out what was lies, and you found out what you needed to know. And I want to ask you as well, what about your dad? Did you, after you saw the picture of him, did you end up eventually meeting your dad as well and his side of the family and things like that?
Yeah, so I met him, and I met my two other half brothers. Allegedly, I have, well, no, not allegedly, I do. I have three half brothers on his side, and I met two of them.
Okay. Okay.
Um, and that was an interesting feeling too, right? Because to be the only person who was adopted, the only person who was given up out of everyone, they didn't
Mhm.
even know about me until I came around. My half
Mhm.
brothers, they didn't even know I existed.
Right.
One cousin on Facebook I reached out to, saying like, I found you guys or whatever. They were like, well, we don't want you a part of our group. You don't belong over here or whatever. So
Right.
I mean, you can imagine how that feels, right? Like I
Oh,
said before,
well,
like yeah, like how a person who's adopted already deals with being wanted or and things like that. So to hear that was like pretty devastating. Um,
right, right.
yeah, but I found out that my birth father, he's really into music. Like he's a really good drummer. My half brother, he's actually in a band. He's a drummer, and I just found
Wow.
that interesting. Like I don't know, it's just interesting, man, to have the same similar gifts. It's pretty
Mhm.
cool.
Oh yeah, right, right, exactly. So kind of sound like my story a little bit, but thankfully I had my dad in my life, and I
Right,
would be around him at times growing up and things like that. But that family politics thing that you talking about of like I was telling you, I won't go into detail as well, but you just start to find out that sometimes things within the family is not what they should be, and sometimes they never will be. And
right,
my last question I want to ask is I want to ask you kind of two questions in one, but one question I want to ask is, are you are you did you decide to currently, or are you actively trying to have any type of relationship with your birth parents, or is there a restoration, or was it just okay? I know what I need to know, and now we need to part ways because of some of the things you mentioned here. And then I want to know as well, what are some of the things that you've done throughout the years and over the years to kind of process these things and deal with them in a healthy way, and learn who you are for yourself, not just from knowing who you are naturally, but just knowing you are your own person as well.
right. Um, as far as the current relationship, no. My birth mother, she deleted me off Facebook. So did my birth father.
Mm,
My biological grandmother, I actually deleted myself.
mhm,
She was very persistent and just didn't have a brake pedal. Like I would tell her like I need time or whatever, and she would be so insistent on me calling her, giving her titles that she to me and my person. Some people might look at me and say like you're kind of mean for that, but
No.
it's just how I felt, and I can't lie to myself, you know.
Right. Right.
So she wanted me to give her title of grandmother and things like that, but I feel like that was being
Mhm.
disrespectful to the people who did raise me, who earned those titles, you know.
Right.
So
Right.
I just refused to refer to them as such, and because of
Mhm.
that, um, that may have been the reason why they deleted me. Again, like
Mhm.
they lied, like my birth mother lied to me. I understand why she lied to me now that I'm older and I had time to process everything. But
Mhm.
at the same time, like to start the foundation on a foundation of lies is difficult to to build upon. So
Right. Right.
that made it really difficult, and especially like I don't know, being adopted, it comes with a lot of trust issues.
Mhm.
It just comes with a lot of trust. I battle with trust a lot, and I've always battled with it. And
Mhm.
it's
Right.
really tough for me. So yeah, so that's I think that's probably why loyalty is so very important to me. And I'm
Okay.
always hyper vigilant of people who aren't loyal or people who are, I don't know, I'm just very hyper vigilant of relationships and people when
Right.
they're leaving or going to leave. It affects me differently
Right.
because I've
Right.
seen people who grew up with their blood family and how they deal with people who leave and versus how I do or how other people I've seen who are adopted deal with it. And I can see a
Mhm.
noticeable difference.
Mhm.
Now, as
Right.
far as how I process it, um, processing it, I think that comes down to music. Um, Music helps me process things. It helps me to lay things out and helps me to get through things. Praying helps me to process because it helps me to get just helps me to go to a different place. I think sometimes
Mhm.
in my current reality of dealing with it, sometimes I have to leave that reality for a minute to be able to process it because there's too much stress in the reality, and it makes it difficult to
Mhm.
process that. So music, um and just talking about it, like when I was growing up, I was conditioned don't talk about things. That's how I was conditioned. I think a lot of people in the 90s were probably conditioned that way. Just keep it moving,
Mhm.
whatever.
Mhm.
And that just filled my cup up to the point where it's just pouring out. Like, so I would get really mad.
Mhm.
I had very bad anger problem. Like I would get really mad,
Mhm.
not understanding why. That may also stem from like when I was younger in like third grade, I watched my grandfather die in front of me. And I
Mhm.
never, and again, like mental health wasn't really a thing like the way it is now. So I wasn't given like,
Mhm.
taken to a place where I could talk about how I felt or how that made me feel, or given tools to be able to process that kind of trauma. And so it would
Mhm.
come out later in life. And
Mhm.
um, yeah, so now how I process things, I talk about it with people I
Right.
trust, people I love. That helps me to process it. It also helps me to gain new perspective on how to deal with it.
Mhm.
Like when I talk to you, like when we have our conversations, you help to give me great insight based on your experiences. And I know you always come from a place of love, and I appreciate that more than you could ever understand because it's helped me so much. And I
No
and
doubt. Yep.
and I really appreciate it. But I think that's how I process it.
Well,
I don't know if
good,
that
man.
really
I
answers the
think
question all that well, but
no, man, just just speak your heart, man. This your testimony. This is your life, and me speaking from the outside looking in, it looks like you're doing a good job of dealing with all of these things. So whatever your regimen is, and whatever is keeping you going and keeping you positive, I encourage you to continue to do those things. And
right.
that leads me into my next question and kind of the next segment, moving into uh, you know how all of this in your story has continued to evolve, because now at some point God blessed you with your own family. You have a wife and you have a young son, beautiful family. And I can just tell you really love your family. And I want to just know, how has your growing up and the things that you had to deal with growing up, and all these things you just talked about, like how has that impacted how you raise and love on your family and your home?
In a huge way, man. Like when I grew up, I
Mhm.
was growing up around. I grew up in a loving house, but I was growing up around certain things I probably shouldn't have been exposed to, And so I made
Mhm.
it. an important thing, or
Mm-hmm.
to for my family not to be, grow up in the same way. It's all about breaking cycles, man. And
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the most important thing, just breaking cycles and trying to improve.
Mm-hmm.
And I think to
Right.
improve, and you have to identify what needs to be improved, and that takes a lot of strength and courage to really take a deep look into yourself and see the flaws, and put in the work to actually correct those flaws. And it takes
Mm-hmm.
time and patience. And I'm
Amen.
not perfect by any means, but yeah, man, like one thing I will say is, like, having a son, right? Whether son or daughter doesn't matter, but the fact that he shares my blood with me, and the fact that there are similarities, is a feeling I can't even begin to explain, man. It's a connection that I
Mm-hmm.
can't begin to explain. It's truly amazing. It's truly
Oh yeah.
amazing.
I can't imagine, man. I don't have any kids of my own, but I'm very thankful to see, all everybody. Basically, we are getting up there a little bit. I know I'm getting
Hey,
up there, but I just see, you, Zach, my brothers, all these little ones, and it's like I be looking at how they look like y'all, man, and it's just crazy to see that, bro. And I want to ask you, like, how has having that, like having your son and having your family, and how has that impacted you as a man, just your character, your priorities, your identity, what you all about, like how has having your own family impacted you directly?
honestly, I think it's making me better. You know, I
Mm-hmm.
it's making me better. It's making me, it's forcing me to improve in every facet, that I can be better for my son, that I can be better for my family. Like, I'm
Amen.
studying like crazy mental health, all the things that I didn't know, to make sure that he's not affected the way that I was. Then
Right.
that comes down to validating his emotions, big or small, letting him know that these emotions are okay, and then teaching him and giving him the tools to be able to work through those emotions. And always
Right.
validating each other, not just my son, but my wife too. Like, always validating each other, however we feel, validating it, not minimizing it, and and
Right.
and and, and working through it, and keeping an open line of communication, and teaching communication. Teaching my son that if you're hurting, if you're sad, it's okay to talk about it, but talk about it with people you trust and people you love. You know,
Mm-hmm.
teaching him that it's okay to cry. Like, I used to hold all my emotions, and I wouldn't show any emotion. You know, and I don't know
Mm-hmm.
why. I think maybe that's just like a defense mechanism. But I
Mm-hmm.
wouldn't. It wasn't until later in high school when I started finally being able to open up, and then I saw how good that felt. Being able to open up about how I feel with people I trust and people I love, and
Right.
showing those more vulnerable sides, and then seeing the power of that vulnerability being translated into music as well, and how that's helping and affecting others in a positive way. Now, I hope that
Mm-hmm.
answers your question.
Yeah, yeah, definitely, man. I mean, having a family, I can tell that it's impacted you in a positive way. So I would agree with that. And I
Yeah.
also want to ask as well, how has it impacted your relationship with God? Because I can remember, when we were in our early 20s, and even when we wasn't, we were doing probably a lot of stuff that we ain't doing any longer, but we would talk about God and we would have these type of conversations, and you still always ask me a lot of questions about the Bible and things like that, which lets me, it indicates to me that you're a believer, So I want to know, how has having a family impacted your faith? Has it impacted your relationship with, or your belief in God in any type of way? Or the things,
Um.
maybe even the things that the Bible says about family and stuff, does that have any bearing on your family?
So, I mean, as you know, like, like, in all honesty, like, having a family definitely impacted my faith, right? But
Mhm,
before I had my family, well, before I had my son, I should say, my faith was impacted in a very negative way. Like, when I lost my
mhm,
brother, and then not
mhm,
even a year after my brother's death, my best friend died. So those
mhm,
two deaths, like, significantly impacted my faith, and I would say a
mhm,
negative way, to be 100% honest.
mhm.
I'm not a person who's always positive all day long. I just, it's just not realistic, right?
Right, right.
Especially the
I
way
hope
life
I
is.
don't
It's,
think
it's not
anybody
possible.
is.
It's not
Right,
possible.
right.
I'm not an Instagram reel. My life is not an
Mhm,
Instagram reel. It's not perfect. It's not everything
right,
put in order and everything just moves to a perfect rhythm. It's more
right,
of a
right.
jazz rhythm.
Mhm.
Um, so I'm really my faith is getting stronger now more so than before. Um, it's just it's taken a lot of conversations with God. I like it. Like I don't want to be misconstrued. Like I still pray. I pray every day.
Mhm.
I still talk
Mhm.
to God, of course. It was just that my face was really, really shook up when my brother died, and then when my best friend died. Um,
Mhm.
but to me, that was a test, and in all honesty, I failed that test. But God's grace allows me to take another test so I can do
Mhm.
better on the next one. So yeah, my faith is getting better, it's getting stronger. The more I talk with God, but I'd be lying, and I don't want to lie if I were to say like my faith is just completely solid. But it is getting stronger every day, and a
Mhm.
lot of the questions that I asked you um, and my other friend have also like really helped to strengthen it even more. So I really do appreciate that.
Oh yeah, that's what we here for. And like you stated, these types of things, man, life throws us curveballs, and I wouldn't even say that you failed the test because you still here, you standing here today, and you in your right mind, and God have brought you to a place where you can share these things with somebody else in a way that can impact them positively. And you've allowed your family and having that foundation of a family to help you get through those tough times that you had to go through, those times of test. And now that you've gotten through them and you still got your family there, now y'all in a stage of building. That was building too, but it was like a test. Now it's like
Right,
building of a time of rest, you know what I'm saying, where we can love on one another, we can, like you said, validate on another, and especially you as the head of the home doing that, making sure everybody know who they are and are just in a safe and healthy space. And
right,
that's
right,
why I want to highlight that because those are all the things that I believe will help a man be a man. And we need that type of help. We need that type of foundation and security and those extra reasons to keep going. You know what I'm saying? Those extra reasons to do more or whatever, not give up. So that's why I wanted to ask, how did your family, how has it impacted you? Because it looks to me like that foundation have been a true blessing to you. So I want to encourage it. How many years have you been married? Because I forgot. We getting up there.
No, you're good, man. Since 2014, so 11 years. It'll be 11
11
years in
years.
August.
Right. So I want to highlight that because again, one of the aspects of this show is to fight against the powers that be that are highlighting all this negativity, this male versus female negativity, everybody getting divorces and can't nobody be married, everybody want to stay single. And I'm like, no, there's people out here who are staying together no matter what. You know what I'm saying? I grew up seeing people that stay together no matter what. And I see you and your family, y'all got 11 years under your belt. So I want to encourage you to continue to build, you know what I'm saying? Because you already know um, the detriments and the impacts of making those decisions that are going to affect the children in a negative way. And I just believe, that sometimes we have to make those decisions. And I don't judge anybody. I don't know anybody's life or situation, but many times we can work through things. And I look at you as a resilient person, just like me. And God, as long as we just say, God, get us through this, yeah, we might get ran, dragged, and all kind of stuff. But God, if you trust in Him, He'll get you through. And when you come out, you're gonna be better, stronger, all those things. So I encourage you, man, continue doing those things. And that brings me to I guess the health aspect of the show. And I know you started getting into health and stuff before you had got your family. So I just want to rewind a little bit and talk about what inspired you to actually start getting into the health and fitness. Um, just tell that side of the story or whatever, and talk about how that developed into what you've done now with your business and things like that.
Okay. With health and fitness, it actually goes back much further. So it goes back to elementary school. So when my grandfather died in front of me, right? I don't know if you want me to go
Mhm.
into that story. I don't know if
Yeah,
it's necessary.
go into whatever you want to go into, brother. However you want to do it.
Okay. I just don't know if it's necessary, like the details of it. I mean, it
Yeah, man.
traumatically affected me
Take your
severely, but
time, bro. Yeah, that well then if you felt like you needed to say that, then you need. that affected your decision. So yeah, that's fine,
Yeah.
man.
Well, so it was a summer. It was during the summer. My granddad kept saying he had a headache, and he was
Mm-hmm.
complaining about it like quite a lot. So my mother said, "Well, if your headache hurts that bad, we're just gonna get in the car and go to the hospital then." So
Mm-hmm.
me, my grandfather, my mother, my grandmother, and my brother got in the car and we started driving. So my mother's driving, he's in the passenger seat. I'm in the seat behind my mother. My brother's in the middle, and my grandmother's sitting directly behind my grandfather. And so
Mm-hmm.
we probably weren't even driving 2 minutes. And his eyes rolled back in his head, and he just started snoring. And what he had a brain aneurysm. And
Mm-hmm.
so my mother, my grandmother screaming at. I'm like in third grade summer at the time, right? So I'm really young. So my grandmother and my mother are screaming at him to wake up, and he just kept snoring, and he just
Mm-hmm.
never woke up. And then so yeah, so he pretty much died right there in the car. And
Mm-hmm.
then the way it affected me, I didn't know, like I wasn't given tools to process that kind of trauma, right? So I
Mm-hmm.
associated headaches with death, and I associated snoring with death. And I didn't learn
Okay.
that until much later. So anytime after the fact, anytime I heard my mother in the room and she was sleeping and she was snoring, I would run into the room and scream at her, crying like, "Wake up, wake up, wake up," because I think she was dying. Anytime I
Mm-hmm.
got a headache, I would be afraid. I think I was about to die if I got a headache. And so it really like impacted me a lot. So that being said, I started not realizing at the time I started using food as a coping mechanism. So
Mm-hmm.
I would eat a lot. And then I
Mm-hmm.
started putting on weight, right? So I started getting overweight or whatever. And then I
Right.
started then I started having issues with my body where I didn't like my body, like body dysmorphia or whatever. I hated
Mm-hmm.
how I looked. And then I started having a self-identity issue. I hated how I look. I didn't like myself. Very
Mm-hmm.
negative. A lot of anger. I think, like I said, like going back to what I said before, I think the anger stems from that trauma, unresolved
Mm-hmm.
trauma, and then probably being adopted and dealing with all these things to process as a third grader, or going into fourth grade. That's a lot to like handle,
Oh yeah.
And then not even long after that, my dad had a heart issue where he had to go to the hospital immediately. That was like a year after my grandfather, and so that was a lot too. And
Mm-hmm.
so again, I used food as a coping mechanism, not realizing at the time, and started putting on a lot of weight, and it got to the point where I was even at times getting bullied for like my size or whatever.
Okay.
And I remember looking in the mirror when I was little, saying, "I'm gonna be in shape one day. I'm gonna have this specific kind of body one day." And a
Okay.
lot of people didn't really believe my like, even my parents sometimes would be like, "Yeah, okay, whatever." Like, because I'm
Right.
talking about
Right.
a body that's like Hollywood ready,
You
because I
was
wanted
like
to.
Arnold Schwarzenegger. Hey y'all, this
Yeah,
dude,
my dad's like, "Okay,"
he
but
ripped.
I
I'm
I
telling
believed
y'all,
it in
man,
myself.
this
I would literally look in the mirror and could see it. Like I could see it.
dude. Okay.
And but it was me not realizing at the time, it was me trying to get as far away from this as I can. And to do that, I have to go to this extreme. And so I
Right.
went to that extreme. And
Mm-hmm.
then so I never in high school I got decent shape, right? I lost quite a bit of weight because you saw me in ninth grade when I was like overweight or whatever, but then I lost a lot of weight. And then I got a
Mm-hmm.
decent physique. And then I ended up going
Mm-hmm.
to school and I became, a certified personal trainer and got my
Mm-hmm.
education through Macomb Community College. And I learned how to do it correctly. And then I was able to take my body to where I wanted to take it to. And then
Okay.
I started being like, I could help other people in the situation that I was in. And I think that
Mm-hmm.
may be what separates me from a lot of other trainers because I actually understand what it feels like to be overweight. Now, everyone has their different starting place, like right. Like someone may have been a little less overweight than me or a little bit more overweight than me, but I still understand what that feels like. I understand
Right.
what it feels like, how people look at you. I understand the psychological effects of it, right? And I
Right.
understand how
Mm-hmm.
difficult it is to change habits that created that physique in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
And the psychological part behind that. It's not just about lifting weights, it's about your approach. It's about your mentality. You have to change the mind
Mm-hmm.
before the body can take action,
Mm-hmm.
you know. And so yeah, that's really why I started training people, is because I wanted to help the younger me. I don't want people to feel like that, and I'm
Right.
trying to help people to get to where I am today.
Wow. Excellent. Excellent. So we need to highlight now then that Corey does have a personal training business. He has had clients. How long have you been in business, Corey, with your personal
Uh,
training?
yeah. So I started literally about, let me think, about a year, no, like a few months after my brother or before my brother died. So that was
Okay,
2016. So
okay,
about, yeah, so about since about
okay.
2016.
Right, and I'll tell you guys before, even before Corey started, excuse me, his personal fitness company. Me and Corey would work out together because I was an athlete in high school, and I mean, he would show me different
Bro.
things, show me, correct forms and stuff like that. He's given me a lot of pointers, a lot of tips on diet, nutrition and stuff. So he's very knowledgeable. Like I told you, he has clients that he produces results, and I could say that too. Like it's a difference between being in shape or being because I'm not a good motivator. Like I'm like army style. Like if you ain't ready, you don't want to work out with me because I'm not gonna be slowing down and all that. I'm gonna you gonna do it till you can't do it no more, or we not gonna work out together. But you have a gift of being able to motivate, and like you said, because like me, I've always been skinny, always been active, so I know what it feels like to be out of shape and get back in shape now. But that being said, I can't imagine. I might have a little more compassion now because it's like, yeah, that ain't no joke. You add the weight and stuff and the food, even like you said, because I used to eat anything and still be fast, still be in shape. But now, once I got older, it was a different story. I'm like, Corey was right. I can't be out here eating whatever I want to eat. So I want you to let everybody know where they can where they could book appointments or consultations, or how does that go, and how can they contact you if somebody's interested about getting in shape, and
Mhm.
then we'll go into a little bit more about the healthy lifestyle.
Yeah, so Instagram, Corey underscore stoner underscore fitness. You can just message me on there and I'll get back to you as soon as possible.
Okay, great, great.
Mm.
So hey, I hope somebody out there want to get in shape. It's almost summer. But
Appreciate
I
it, man.
think as well, that culture and that attitude of, oh, it's almost summertime and I want to show off my body. I don't believe in that culture. I
Me
believe in
either.
working out to be in shape, to be healthy, to take care of our bodies, and to live.
Well,
You know what I'm
my
saying?
goal, I don't mean to interject, but my goal for my clients is not a get fit quick scheme. It's more of a sustainability. It's more of a
Mhm.
setting up tools and habits that's going to allow them to sustain what they have for the rest of their life. Because it's not just about getting fit for the moment; it's about being fit for the rest of your life. You know, and
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
that varies for individual. Every individual is different. Every individual starting point is different. We just start where you're at, and then we build from there. And it's hard to say how long it will take. You know, like some may take 90 days, some may take a little bit longer. But the most important thing is at the end of it, as long as we have the sustainable results and we have those sustainable habits built into place, then your success is pretty much guaranteed at that point. You know, for the long
Right.
haul, not for the short
And,
race.
and see, yeah, that's what I was about to go into that a bit and let you touch on it too, because you actually have to work with people and teach them and show them that the get the fix quick mentality or get in shape quick mentality is not beneficial to a healthy lifestyle. Is not going to produce the results that are going to be sustainable, like you said. And like the pharmaceutical companies and these, even I would like supplemental. Some of those supplements are not healthy for people. You know what I'm saying? And they trying to find shortcuts and do different things. So I want you to highlight like the importance of the mentality that goes into that lifestyle regimen. Because I know no matter how much of what you're doing, you got to be consistent and you have to be disciplined. So I want you to how do you teach people that, and how do you work that into people and help them understand that in a culture we are just a microwave culture.
Right. So sustainability and the things that you mentioned and discipline, for one, like for myself, people only have a finite amount of discipline until those reserves are used up and you don't have any more. You have to wait for them to replenish. With that being said, the best thing to do is to set it up to make it as enjoyable as possible. Because, for example,
So
if I
excuse
hate,
me, I don't want to interrupt you, but you said we have a finite amount of discipline. Like, go into detail about I've never heard anybody say that. So, like, what does that look like? Because I don't either a person is disciplined or they're not. As far
right,
as I understand the word, like, what do you
I
mean by
understand.
that?
Okay, so what I mean by that is, let's say, for example, you hate broccoli, right?
Hmm.
But I set up for you that you're going to eat broccoli every single day.
Hmm.
Your discipline is not going to allow you to continue to do that for the rest of your life.
Okay.
Eventually, those reserves will diminish until you can
Okay.
no longer run off of discipline. That tank will reach empty eventually, right?
Hmm.
That's what I mean by that. So setting
Okay.
up something that you could do, but let's say you love carrots or something like that, just some vegetable. You love
Hmm.
carrots. If I put that into your plan, you won't have to dip into those discipline reserves as much. So they'll be able to stay high and you can dip into them as needed rather than just diminishing them right off the gate. You know what I mean? And that helps for the sustainability aspect of it to go for the long haul rather than a short, sprint.
Gotcha.
Hope that,
Okay. Makes sense.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. So
So like,
that's good.
so making it enjoyable, like looking, so when you look at like nutrition, you look at what do you enjoy eating and then build off of
Mhm.
that rather than be like, I'm going to have you eat what I feel like you should eat, but you hate all of what I'm telling you to eat. Your discipline might even take you a week and then you're like, I can't do it anymore. And then you feel defeated. And then that vicious cycle starts. Well, I must not have enough discipline. I can't do this. No, you do, but I just used up too much of it too fast.
Okay. Wow. Because I
Yeah.
don't know, man. I guess maybe I'm built differently, but when it comes to eating, it's like the more I work and the harder I work and the hungrier I get, the less I care about what I'm eating. So, like, as my training regimen increased, because I understand that struggle and that addiction to like sugar and the taste of things. I don't get it twisted. I love how food tastes. I
Me
still
too,
like eating
bro.
the food,
I've
but
ate your food
it's
before. I know.
for like the cheat code for me though was like when I'm hungry after training, some carrots or some broccoli or anything that's like refreshing and replenishing, it tastes amazing to me because I'm so hungry and tired. I'm like, yeah, give me that healthy stuff. So it's like that
Right.
for me, that was how I figured out that cheat code. But I
Right.
don't know, man. I feel like our culture and a lot of people just are weak minded. Like they don't really. It's like they want something, but they want it. They want the cheat code to have it. They don't want to do what it takes to have it. It's like if you want it for real, you got to do what it takes to get it. I mean, that's my mentality, you know. So do you have
Right.
to like tell people that or get them to understand that as well? Like, hey, you're gonna have to put some work in. It's not gonna be easy, you know. Your
Oh yeah. I
muscles
mean,
burn like that hurt. It's supposed to hurt, you know.
yeah. Ideally, you're doing things that, because if they come to you in the first place, they need to do something different, and
Mhm.
oftentimes doing something different entails pain, or not necessarily physical pain, but just pain of changing a routine, you know.
Mhm.
And yeah,
Right.
there is some soreness associated with training for sure, and they
So
understand that. Make
discomfort,
sure,
right?
huh?
Discomfort is a better
Mhm, yeah,
word.
discomfort.
Yeah.
It's just
Mhm.
it's never comfortable when you're doing something outside of what you're used to doing.
Right.
But
Right.
if what you're used to doing is not presenting change, then we need to do something different. And that may be uncomfortable at first, but that's where the change is going to happen,
Exactly.
you
Exactly.
know?
Now, I'll mention as well, and I know you're in nursing school currently, correct?
Yes, actually start in the fall. So I just finished my prereqs and I start nursing school in the fall.
Okay, so I won't I don't need you to go beyond your scope of knowledge, but especially based on the health and nutrition, because since and I want to just talk about this a little bit since 2020 when we had COVID and things like that, we're dealing with a sickness now that we don't know about, and it's affecting health. People have lost their lives. My wife and I was just talking about this yesterday. She has multiple family members that she lost. I know people that were close to my family that was lost during that time. And, during that time, it reminded me, and I think it made all of us start looking at our health and focusing on the importance of it again and what we eat and things like that. And I would always go back to a lot of things that you told me about the food, about the diet, how we used to eat, Doritos and Mountain Dew all day and having the munchies munching out, and you stopped, you got away from that. I continue to dip and dabble into that. I would try to do healthy things, but I still was really living a bad lifestyle because I wasn't fat. And when my health started deteriorating around the same time as COVID and stuff, I'm like, yeah, it's time for me to start tightening up and getting more on the level of Corey. And I always laugh when I think about that. You had gave me some gluten-free bread one time, and
Oh,
it tasted
you
like
talking about the
cardboard.
Ezekiel bread?
Yeah, that bread was like, I'm like, yeah, bro. So
Yeah,
I
I'm not
still
gonna
ain't
lie,
got.
man. I don't eat that bread no more, man. It's extremely dry.
Yeah, that bread, that bread was dry. I tasted like I had been into Iraq. I've been to a piece
Bro,
of Iraq. But
if you try to eat that bread dehydrated, you would definitely choke to death.
yeah. But
It
you
was
were right though about the bread, bro. And when I cut bread out of my diet, if I do eat bread, it's only whole grain. Or I might make my own, but I always think about what you told me with that and how that bread now, it's not even real bread, man. You know what I'm
mhm.
saying? And I don't know, man. If you
Well,
could just emphasize to the people, whether they are gonna work out or not, or they serious about getting in shape or not, at least eating right and the importance of that, and especially in light of all the things that's going on health wise, even our environment and things like this, the way it's changing. I'm just feeling in my spirit we need to really be aware of our bodies and taking care of them. Like I want to hear your wisdom and input for the people on that.
Well, with like you were mentioning the gluten intolerance, like some people, like I would say, cut out certain things if there's an intolerance. If it's causing GI disrupt, like or inflammation is, then obviously we would want to cut that out or at least limit it. I
Mhm.
think the important things is balance. I don't have like this perfect clean cut diet that I'm just regimented and I'm just, I have balance. So majority, I
Mhm.
do like an 80-20, 90-10 rule. So 80
Mhm.
to 90% of the time, I'm eating more clean, right? More whole foods, lean proteins, good sources of carbohydrates, fats.
Mhm.
And then the other 10 to 20% of the time, it's pizza time,
Yeah.
or
Makes sense.
whatever. It's
Right.
balanced. So when it comes down to losing weight, it comes down to calories. Calories are king. Calories are what is going to drive weight loss. If you're not in a calorie deficit, meaning that you're burning more calories than you're taking in, you're not going to lose weight. I don't care what you're doing.
Mhm.
So calories are first, and then your macronutrients. That's what's going to drive body composition. Do you look strong at the end of your cut, or do you just look like a smaller version of yourself? And then
Mhm.
exercise and how you regiment that as well is important. So if we're doing weight training like resistance training, that's going to help to maintain that lean muscle mass, and we
Mhm.
follow what is referred to as a periodization, right? So what we're doing is we're constantly trying to increase, right? So strength isn't always linear, but we try to do it in a way that um, will allow us to keep the muscle on our body, right? Because that's better for the metabolism. The more muscle you have on our body, the more calories you burn at rest. So
Okay.
calories in check, calorie deficit, a moderate calorie deficit. That way you're not losing too much muscle. You don't want to lose muscle. That's why protein needs to be in check because protein is also going to help to maintain that lean muscle tissue, right? So you look strong at the end of your cut. Because as you're in a deficit, you can lose muscle if you're not careful. So protein needs to be in check, moderate calorie deficit, not extreme calorie deficit, and then weight training and then
Mhm.
increasing the weight over time. So, for example, if I'm benching, let's say 135, and I do 8 reps with it, next time I shouldn't be doing 135 for 8 reps. I should try to do 135 for 10. Then once I reach my
Mhm.
rep goal, then I can increase the weight again and do so incrementally, like 5 or 10 pounds. This gives your body a reason to preserve that lean muscle tissue.
Okay. Okay. Wow. Interesting.
Yeah, so
My
balance. So
workout is
again, going back to
mainly
that, like balance is key. Like 80-20,
mhm.
90-10 rule. Like don't try to eat like a robot because that's not sustainable. And again, like
Mhm.
your discipline will run out really fast. Like obviously
Right.
you're programmed in a way that's not like the average person, but the average person, their reserves are gonna run out pretty quick.
Yeah, and it depends. Like you're speaking for the app for a person who is trying to stay in shape for a regular lifestyle. I'm
Right.
training
I'm not
for
talking about
professional
trained
boxing.
athletes or
Yeah,
things like that.
that's
I'm talking
good.
about
It's a
the average
totally different.
person trying to
Yeah,
look good, or trying to,
right. Because I'm gonna tell you right now, I do eat pizza every now and then. I do cheat every now and then on the weekend. I cheat a little bit.
Mhm.
But my training regimen is to the point where if I cheat too much, I won't be able to finish my training
Right.
because it's literally my it'll shut down my bowels, or I could get dehydrated, or my muscles will I can literally feel my muscles tiring out quicker. And it's like,
Right.
no, I gotta it's just every little thing you do, because it's like you're pushing yourself to the limit almost every time you train, you know.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely. You got to
and
refuel
I
that.
mean,
So,
you're doing that as well when you're not in shape, but it's different pushing yourself to the limit when you're not in shape and your limit is 30 push-ups, and pushing your limit when you in shape and your limit is a 4-hour training session. You get what I'm saying?
right.
Your
Well,
regimen your discipline has to be at that point, it has to be on point. You ain't
yeah.
got no choice.
When you're training as an athlete, the steps that you take is much different. Like, for example, like for somebody who's training to get in season, like training, they're more concerned about not aesthetics. They're more concerned about performance. They want to be able to perform at a high level.
Mhm,
And to do that, you need the nutrition and the fuel to be able to do that. So
mhm,
your calories are probably gonna be much more than the average person because you're burning more, your workouts are longer, and you need to be
mhm.
able to fuel that, and not only fuel the workout, but also fuel the recovery, which is also highly important.
Right,
So
right, right,
the goals are gonna be different in
right,
the
right.
approach.
Definitely, definitely. Well, that's good, man. That's excellent. Again, people, if you guys are looking for a personal trainer, I highly, highly recommend Corey. Go ahead and contact him on Instagram, and let him get you together. Corey Stoner Fitness. And like I told you all at the beginning of this, Corey is also a recording artist. Me and Corey been rapping together for a long time. It's been a while since we've been doing things consistently, but Corey's still been on his grind. Corey still makes music, shares music with others, and Corey is a great rapper. And that's one of the reasons why I respect him as well, because doing music out here, especially in today's day and time, it's not as glamorized and it's not as easy of a thing as people might imagine it to be. You're very vulnerable when you out here sharing your art on that level, because as you stated, many of the things that you've been through and many of the things you've experienced in your life that are very like dear to you, very sensitive topics, like you've used music as a way to help you get through these things and deal with these things, and you even shared that with others. And I think that is something that we don't value enough in our culture. When it comes to music, it's like everything is so watered down and stuff. So I just want to highlight you as an artist, you know what I'm saying, and share my platform as an artist with another artist, because those are the types of things that I believe in. I don't believe in the competition and all of the mess that comes along with the hip hop culture today, but I believe in, like you said, expressing and sharing and working together as well. You know what I'm saying? So right now, I want you to just tell everybody, about your music, about like whatever you want to tell us, maybe about what, your style, or what type of music you enjoy, how you got into music or whatever, and where they can find your music right now. If still dropping stuff, I know you put stuff on Facebook, still really good content there. So tell us about your music, brother.
Yeah, so going back again to the death of my grandfather, that's where I got into writing music. I wrote the first time I ever wrote was I'll say fourth or fifth grade, so not long after his
Wow.
passing, and that like unknowingly became my therapy. And
Mhm.
at the time, I don't think I was sharing it with too many people. I shared it with a couple people, but I wasn't sharing it the way I am today. But yeah, I
Mhm.
started writing music a long time ago. I found like when things got too much, when the pain was too much, when the trauma was too much, when just everything. Like I would put on my headphones and just go to those places. It was a way of escape for me. It was a way for me to process things. It was a way for me to really express myself in a safe place, because at the time I wasn't recording. So I was more
Right.
so just to myself. But it was a
Mhm.
way for me to like release all of that that trauma or whatever. And so that's
Mhm.
how I started music. Then obviously we met each other, and then very grateful that you took me to your studio, even though at the time I was like terrible.
No, oh
um,
no, no, you wouldn't. Nah,
uh, I wasn't, I
no,
wasn't, I was decent, I guess, but I didn't think I was that good. But I was truly appreciative that you still took me to your studio, man. That was a very thankful for that, incredibly thankful for that, and
oh yeah,
always enjoy making music with you, especially even now. Like so much
right,
fun,
right. Man,
and
you got good, bro. You evolve. Like that's why I tell people don't never give up if you really want to do it and you're serious about doing it. Because I remember when you first started rapping with us at the studio with me and Zach, you were struggling staying on beat, but you didn't stop.
It was
You
a
know what I'm
big it was a
saying?
big struggle for me. And I think the reason why it was such a big struggle for me to rap on beat, because I was too much focused on what I wanted to say. And I
Right,
was trying
right,
to fit. Now that I understand music more, I was trying to fit bars that just would not fit in those measures.
right,
Too
right,
many
right.
words,
Right.
like way too many
Mhm.
words.
Right.
And so in the learn, so yeah, like educating,
You had to
and
perfect.
learning from.
You had to perfect your skills. You know what I'm saying? You had to get
Yeah,
better. But
right,
because you didn't give up, you were able to. And
right.
because you didn't. What I don't like about music now, and then I'm gonna let you get back to your story, but
Hmm.
it's important to me, man, because you evolved from that to like right now. You a great rapper, bro. I mean, there's a
I
lot of great
appreciate that,
rappers
man.
out there, and you're one of them. I just put it like that, and
Likewise, bro. Your
that's
your
because
flow is crazy. Always
you
been.
kept going with it. You kept you did what you had to do to make it what it is today, man, and that's dope. And I think that it sucks that the music now, a lot of it sounds horrible, bro. They not putting no effort into what they're doing, and that's crazy to me. But yeah, man.
Yes, but like I thank you for that, truly, man, because your flow has always been on point. Always, like you could take this, and you always had the ability to take the song from start to finish, like make the beat, rap, sing.
Right.
I couldn't
Oh
do any
yeah.
of that. I couldn't even find the beat. I didn't know where the beat was at.
Right. Now, I mean, it was all God. He put us
Yeah,
together and gave
I
us that
even
love for music. You know.
I even had another artist approach me saying like, man, maybe you should stop making music. You can't rap on the beat. Like maybe you should do something else. But I just always
Oh, when we
believed
were
in my.
younger. When we were
Yeah, when I was
younger.
younger, I always
Mhm.
believed in my. I just had this. I couldn't describe it. I just had a feeling like I could do that. I know I could do that.
Right. Right.
And
Exactly.
it
Right.
I just always
That's
had that
what it
feeling. The
is.
same way I always had that
Right,
feeling like I'm gonna have that physique. Like I know I'm gonna have that physique.
right.
Like
But see,
those
this
were
is the
just
difference though. You had the patience to see it through. That's what I want everybody to get here is that Corey has done some things in his life that developed over time. And if you stay consistent and you stay persistent with and you stay serious about that belief, that inspirational belief that you can do something and you do what it takes to do it, you will do just that. But the problem is people don't want to do what it takes a lot of times. You got to be willing to do what it takes. And if you want to do it, if you ain't willing to do what it takes, you don't want to do it enough. That's my logic on it.
right. But like to be clear, like I wouldn't be where I'm at as an artist without the things that were in place to get me to where I am as an artist. Like
Mhm,
all your knowledge that even now still continue to give me. Like the
mhm.
conversations we had when we were doing that feature, all the knowledge you gave me that I didn't know,
Oh,
has
for
helped me
sure.
to improve.
Right.
Even Jess has like his knowledge has helped me to improve. Doing
Mhm,
my own research and learning from other artists, especially artists in the industry who I looked up to as songwriters,
mhm,
really helped me to improve because I learned that there's like more of a science, there's more of like a formula to how to write and how to approach
mhm,
music. That really helped me
mhm,
a lot. And just wanting to be better. I think wanting to be better. If you want to be better and you're persistent, like you said, and consistent and just keep doing it, not for the reason of monetary gain, but just be like, I think that's the thing. Like, that's what kept me in the fight. Like, it wasn't necessarily for monetary gain. It was because this is my therapy. Like, I have to do
Right,
this type of thing, you know,
right,
like
right.
I have to get this off of my chest, you know. And then the
Mhm.
fact that some people are gravitating towards it, some people are liking it, you know, not a lot of people, but some people are liking it. Those who do, like, I appreciate it so much. And it seems to be resonating with some people.
Right,
And that kind of keeps me,
right,
that's not the initial reason why I started, you know.
right, right. For sure, man. I can relate to you on that definitely, and that's why I still do music to this day, man. Like my dad, not my dad Kedwin, but who, he impacted me musically a lot with just his skills and gifts and his friends and the family. But my dad Mitchell, he loves music as well, and he always give me advice and stuff and try to tell me, you need to make music for the people, just referring to like secular, just what I know people would like, what people want to hear, and I would just always tell them I make it for myself first. And that's what
Right.
I mean referring to that is that the same way that it's therapeutic for you first, that's what it is for me first. And like God blessed me to be able to do that. Like times when I got through Iraq, just time whenever I'm having hard times, the Lord, that's one of the things that I can do, to help me get through those things or deal with things, express things. And I believe that that's really what art should always be about. We shouldn't be motivated by financial gain when it comes to art and things like that, even though it's a part of it. Real art, it comes from the soul, it comes from the heart and people's experiences as human beings, and being honest and real and being able to portray it in a creative way to where, as you said, it would resonate with someone else. And that's why I want to encourage you to keep doing music, man. Oh, okay. Can you hear me now? Can you hear me, bro? Can you hear me, Corey? Yeah, I can hear you. Yeah, my screen froze. You froze now. Come on, catch back up. Yeah, there you go. You back? We losing connection now. We talking about some real stuff. Let me know when you back.
I'm not sure why it's doing that.
Can you hear me?
I can't hear what you're saying.
You can't hear me? You can hear me now? Mm, okay. Yeah, you breaking up, but I was just saying, I wanted to encourage you to keep on making real music, and keep doing it for all the right reasons because, as you said, it resonates with people. And
It's breaking up really
wow,
bad right now.
yeah, it's probably breaking up because of what I'm saying, man. That's all. Let me see if I move this microphone. Maybe that'll help. Is that?
And your screen's
Oh,
froze.
it is. Oh
Hmm.
wow. It ain't froze on my end. Everything is streaming good on my end. That's weird. It
Oh no,
might
you
be
you froze on
it
my
might be
end.
your connection because you were breaking up a little bit. You were breaking up a little
I
bit.
wouldn't be surprised. My connection typically does go out. Hold on,
But
let me see. All right, all right, we're good now.
yeah, we're pretty
I
much
can't.
rounding the home plate and really ending it on that note of the music, man, and all the things that you said before it started breaking up was key because that's another important aspect of this platform. This show is the freedom of speech, and self-expression. And even though I come from a biblical perspective and I don't agree with what everybody says, I don't agree with what everybody expresses, but I believe that we should have the choice and freedom to do so. If somebody want to express themselves like an idiot or whatever, that's their choice. And if people want to listen to that, that's their choice. But I don't like the fact that we live in a culture where real self-expression, real truth, real reality, a lot of times, like creative people like yourself and me who can express these things in an artistic way on the hip hop side, it gets shunned. Now, if somebody write a
Hmm.
country music like that, it would be a hit. You know what I'm saying? But when it comes to hip hop, it gets dumbed down, and they use it to brainwash the youth and stuff. So I want to encourage you to keep making real music, and keep making good music, because as you said, it's resonating with people and making a difference in people's lives. It's making a difference in your life as well. And just want to encourage you as well, man, to keep hanging in there for your family. I'm still praying for your dad. How is he doing, man?
I mean, for what it is, he's good, man.
Mhm.
Trying to
Well,
improve. Yeah.
well, man, you always can talk to me about that stuff, bro, because my dad went through that as well. And
Yeah, man. I'm really
hey,
sorry for
man,
your loss, man.
hey, it's a part of life, but we got each other, and thank God, like you said, man. Like, look now, you have your own legacy. God then bless you. You have a son that you can raise up, teach him and show him everything and just keep everything going. You know what I'm saying? So,
Yeah, man.
man, I'm
Doing,
thankful,
doing,
bro.
trying to do my best, man. That's one thing I like that scares me the most is failing him. So I'm doing everything I can not to.
Yeah, I think if you do your best, man, you'll be good, because that's all we can do as parents, man. I mean, we don't have as much control as we think we have, but you definitely in control of your effort.
Yeah,
So,
that's true. One
you
hundred
that's
percent.
you do your best, man. I think you'll be all right for sure.
Appreciate that,
But,
man.
hey,
And one
man,
thing I say
you
about music is not everybody's going to do this, but there's a strength in being vulnerable. It's okay to be vulnerable. Everyone has a story, whether small or big, or however you view your own story. I think it's important to share it whenever the person or individual is ready, and it could have a bigger impact than you realize. And like you said, a lot of music is watered down, especially mainstream music. It more so tailors to a specific topic of sex, money, drugs, and killing and destruction,
know,
unfortunately. Um, but I think that artists who are vulnerable, such as like, I don't know, artists like J. Cole, for example, like people who try to input more positivity or things that are more thought provoking, help to balance out that scale to some degree, or like a Lupe Fiasco and people like that. I
yeah, I don't
think,
know, man. I think I won't go into details about that, but every now and then, yeah, they gotta let somebody come with a different look, because it's obvious what's being promoted. But as you're
yeah,
from an artist perspective, as you trying to come up the ranks and you're trying to get noticed, and especially if you rap about Jesus. Now we can
hmm
talk. You talking positive, you're gonna have some struggles, but there
hmm
is a niche market within hip hop for a conscious rap. But then
right.
when you start talking about Jesus and you start talking about the Lord and spiritual things, there is no market.
Yeah.
And I
Not for that
mean,
kind of mainstream, but then it gets kind of more boxed into the gospel rap.
no, I was gonna say even as a gospel, there is no market for it, because again, it's not real. The same way that the hip hop is fake and it's not reflecting real life, the gospel rap is not reflecting real Christian life. Not especially the stuff that's on
You
the
mean
radio.
from like a mainstream perspective? Because I do
Right.
know some independent artists who definitely reflect real
Yeah.
life, which I'm
I'm
sure you
talking
do
about
too.
yeah, I'm talking about the gospel rap that's on the radio. You
Oh,
would
okay.
have
I
to
haven't I
you would
haven't
have to
listened
build
to too
your
much gospel rap on the
yeah,
radio.
you had to build your own audience from the ground up if you was talking about real Christian biblical stuff in your music. And that's what I
Right.
mean by, I mean, that's fine. It's good we got the internet now, but I even believe they do things with the internet to suppress that. And it's just the opposite of free speech. It's a whole nother conversation, but that's why I encourage people like you who are sharing stuff, because I've even seen some of your stuff that it was good, but it didn't get a lot of traction because it was positive. Because of what you was talking about, and a lot of that has to do with where people's spirit at, but I think a lot of it had to do with those evil agendas as well. So excuse me, when people putting out good material, I'm like, hey, keep going, because I see it, I hear it, and other people do too. You know what I'm saying?
That was a
And
conversation that a friend and I had earlier today. That oftentimes, just because like people aren't liking it, you don't really realize who's viewing it and the kind of impact it's having. Like not everybody hits the like button, but that doesn't mean it's not impacting people, and there aren't people who are seeing it and getting something out of it.
Oh yeah, definitely. And that I mean that's selfish because again, if you're when you that goes back to our culture. A person took their time, that what they just did took time, it took effort, it may have even took other resources. They shared it with everybody free of charge. And all you have to do is just click a like or share with other and people don't. I've seen that where I've posted sermons and all kind of stuff, two, three, 400 views, and people won't click like because they don't want to be identified with it. They don't, it's got the culture have gotten to that point. It's because people are controlled. But that's why as artists, man, we have to stay free. I don't think we realize how important it is for us to stay free. Because think about it, man. Think about how being able to express yourself through your music have been a blessing and an outlet for you. And imagine these younger generations, how they're going to be when they're being told what to think and how to be. That's really what that to me. That's what's happening. They're being told how they should think, how they should be, how they should respond to things, and if they're this way, then that's something wrong with them. When, as you said, what if how they feeling at that moment is just a part of being human? But the culture have now said no, that's evil, it's toxic or whatever, and maybe they just needed to go write a song about what happened. Maybe they got dumped or something and they just having a bad day. I don't know. But I just want to encourage you, brother. I do. And I do thank you for coming on the show again. And before we
Yeah.
end, where can people find that music, bro? Because I want some people to check you out.
Yeah, so on YouTube, the real Corey space Breeze, and then on Instagram at the real Corey Breeze. And I
Okay,
appreciate
cool.
you having me on your platform, man. I truly appreciate it. And I always enjoy the conversation that we have, man. It's always fun.
Man, all the time. And hey, we had these conversations all the time on the phone.
All
So
the time,
this
man.
this
All the
this how
time.
it is. This is why I love Uncensored Live because,
I keep
and I mean,
forgetting we're on live.
yeah, exactly, because we just be kicking it, man, and
Right.
that's a beautiful thing about having a good friend, bro. I truly thank God for you coming on the show. I thank God
Man.
even more for you being a
Likewise,
great
man.
friend.
I always love you, man. Always.
Oh yeah, much love, brother, and God bless your family as well. So I ain't gonna
You
hold you
too.
up no more. I'm gonna let you get up there to them, and y'all just have a great weekend. And all of the watchers, all the subscribers, I appreciate you all as well. I hope you all have a blessed weekend. And hey, I'll be getting with you all again pretty soon with some Bible study, some music. I don't know, we'll see. But y'all be blessed. Hey, Corey, thanks, bro. All
Oh yeah, likewise, man. Thank you too.
right, have a good night.
All right, you too.
All right.
All right.